So I have to offer a disclaimer for this particular sermon, and it's this. I really do love my family. Very much. So bear with me on this one. Because this sermon starts in a place in South Mississippi called Harrisville. Anybody ever been there? Really? Wow. That's impressive. So you'll know exactly what I'm talking about with this. That's the first time I've ever even met somebody that's heard of Harrisville. Harrisville is a tiny little town in a central southern county in Mississippi. It's very rural, it's very small, and it's the birthplace of my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, and his 8 brothers and sisters. Pappy and his family, and yes, we all called him Pappy, whether he was actually your grandfather or not. Pappy and his family grew up in this small town. And my grandfather was the youngest of all the brothers and sisters, so he liked to brag a lot that he got a lot of access in Harrisville, that he really was a big man about town because he had 8 sets of hand-me-downs. He was the only kid in his class that actually had shoes. Therefore, he was elected best dressed. Pappy had 2 pair of overalls growing up. And it starts there in Harrisville because when I was a teenager, I went to my very first Brock family reunion in Harrisville. Now, the Baptists were good enough to loan us their fellowship hall, which is what they call a parish hall. A fellowship, they loaned us the fellowship hall so that my family, this center of Harrisville commerce and education, my family, these wonderful, stalwart members of this community could gather together, break bread, and spend a little time together. And when I walked in to that fellowship hall, the first thing I thought was, good Lord, this is my family? There were poor people, for heaven's sake. There were people with tattoos. There were people with longer hair than mine. There were people that didn't look like they belonged to my family. I went in with a pretty serious prejudice, as you can imagine. But do you know what happened in that time together, in that family reunion? With all of those people that didn't look like me, probably didn't think like me. You know what happened? We sat down and we broke bread together. We ate fried chicken and had pie. Turns out pie is universal in my family. Everybody loves pie. So we sat down together, and as we broke bread, we began to break down walls. Or at least I did. And I began to see these people not just for the images that they portrayed, but for what they really and truly were and are. My family, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, my people. And one of the things that I learned that was a very important lesson for me as a teenager, and something that I've tried to carry with me from that day forward, is that family is very, very important. And it's rarely what you expect, but it's always what you need. Family is rarely what you expect, but it's always what you need. By the end of the day, I didn't just see cousins and aunts and uncles. I saw brothers and sisters in the faith. I saw people that were different than me in all shapes and all sizes and in all sorts and all modes of thought, that somehow I loved on a deeper level because we were connected. We were creating and nurturing that essential human need that thing that is given to us by God, where we are hardwired for connection. We were together as family. Now that's an important lesson for me, family being never what I expect, but always what I need, because I have also spent my life in the church. I'm a cradle Episcopalian. I've never been anywhere but the Episcopal Church. It's really, really important to me. The Christian faith is important to me, and one of the things that we use often as a metaphor for our existence is the idea of family. We like to say things like the family of God or our parish family, and I think that's great, but we have to remember that family is never what we expect, but always what we need. Now, I'm really good at claiming my immediate family because they look like me. They act like me. They talk like me. I'll claim them every day, all day. But we get on the outer fringes of some of my cousins, I might be a little more hesitant. And what I have to remember is that family is never what I expect, but always what I need. When Jesus and his disciples are in that house in Galilee, they're so crowded that they can't even eat. And did you hear that bit in the beginning that Jesus' mother and brother and sisters are looking for him because people are saying he's crazy? He's nuts for who he's hanging out with and what he's doing? One of the translations of that particular phrase says he's beside himself. That's straight out of a Harrisville family reunion, if you ask me. That boy's beside himself. And he says to the people that are around, my brother and my sisters and my mother, my family, they're you. They're those of you that do the will of God in the world. And it's radical. It's crazy. It's beside ourselves. It's not what we expect, but exactly what we need. Jesus was so radical in this that even as he's hanging on the cross, he says to the thief, the bandit beside him, brother, today you will be with me in paradise. So the notion of family values is not the notion that I had before I walked in to that little family reunion in that rural town. It's a notion that is so much bigger. It's so much bigger than just who we like or who we look like or sound like or act like or think like. It's the notion of God's family, of God cutting through boundaries and walls, of God cutting through images and stereotypes and saying, you are my brother, you are my sister, and you are a part of this family. Now, part of our job as faithful people is to take that notion out into the world and share it, to live into it fully. Brother, let me be your servant. Let me be as Christ to you. Sister, let me be the one that holds Christ's light for you. Let me show you the family of God, and I promise you this, that when we do that, it will be beyond anything we could expect, but it will be exactly what we need. Amen.